Welcome to Gold Coast Insider, where we bring you business insights, stories, opportunities, and forecasts from movers and shakers across the Gold Coast. I'm your host, Estella Rodiguero. I'm CEO of Regional Development Australia Gold Coast. My guest today is Michael Kelly. Michael is the General Manager of Strategic Projects at the Currumbin Wildlife Sanctuary. Now, he commenced his career in operational management within the theme park, hotel and casino industries before joining Currumbin Wildlife Sanctuary nearly 11 years ago, back in 2013. Michael's leadership has been integral in developing Currumbin Wildlife Sanctuary into a multi-award-winning must-do attraction for local and international visitors. And he has overseen unprecedented growth in visitation and revenue, with his strengths in connecting strategy, visitor experience, and business outcomes. After leading the sanctuary for about 7 years, Michael is now the General Manager of Strategic Projects for the National Trust of Australia, Queensland, and he is currently developing and leading the implementation of strategic direction, breathing new life into National Trust properties across the state and continuing to grow the sanctuary. So big job, Michael. Congratulations on your position with the National Trust. I think that's incredible as well. So welcome.
Thank you. Thanks for having me, Estella.
Oh, you're most welcome. Now, look, everyone would know the Currumbin Wildlife Sanctuary, and it has been around for about 70 years, correct?
Correct. About 76 years.
Wow. Look, I don't know a lot of places that are continuing to go and grow after that period of time. But let's take a step back. I want to talk about, let's get to know Michael. What was your career journey? Was hospitality your thing?
Yeah, it was in my blood. When I was at school, I studied hospitality. And then as soon as I left school, I wanted to do hospitality. So I went and enrolled into a hospitality management degree and was also working full time within a five-star hotel. And then when I left that course, I wanted to do it even more. So I got more jobs in hotels. So I basically had 2 full-time jobs within the hotel industry at different hotels, which was fun. It did my, I was lucky I was young back then. That's all I can say.
We're very resilient back then, aren't we? We don't
Absolutely. No. But then I took a little bit of a break from hotels. I worked in the theme park sector for a bit, which was great. It was awesome to work in such a fun environment like that. Taught me a heap of things, and it actually got me involved in the event industry. I was encouraged whilst I was in the theme parks to do some events, and I loved it. So I got back into hotels in banqueting and events, and then became a banquet manager, a conference and events manager. I would then become a food and beverage manager within hotels. So really got to see a whole heap of different facets of the hotel sector. And then I got the opportunity to do some pre-openings in Fiji and China, which was great exposure to completely different climates and different ways of doing things and so forth, which was wonderful. But then that took me into working in casinos. So I had a stint here at the Star on the Gold Coast, but then also was working as the operations manager for food and beverage and hotel for Treasury Casino in Brisbane. And then I saw the opportunity to come and back and work on the Gold Coast for a not-for-profit organisation like the Currumbin Wildlife Sanctuary. So that's kind of my path.
Wow. What position did you start at in the Currumbin Wildlife Sanctuary?
Yeah, so I started as the commercial revenue manager. So I was in charge of all of our commercial operations here, which was great because it started at a time when the sanctuary wasn't doing or performing that well. So it's been wonderful to see that over the last 10 odd years, the journey that the sanctuary has taken to go from where it was financially and not performing too well to being quite financially sustainable now, and then being able to invest significantly in what we're doing in the conservation space.
Yeah, look, can I ask, well, I guess we'll get to this, but the sanctuary, has it always owned the amount of land that it takes now, the footprint it has it always had that?
Yeah, so back in the late 40s when our founder, Alex Griffiths, established the sanctuary, it was quite a much smaller footprint on the eastern side of the Gold Coast Highway. And then in the late 60s into the 70s, he started to acquire more land on the western side of the Gold Coast Highway. So had a lot of vision back in the time to he could see a lot of development happening on the Gold Coast and wanted to make sure that he protected this fantastic natural resource that we have so close to one of Australia's best beaches as well. So we now have 27 hectares of bushland and rainforest areas and so forth here within such an urbanized setting.
Yeah, that's quite a vision, like to have that vision and set this up for sanctuary for years to come is quite an amazing thing. We're very lucky here on the Gold Coast that is there. But I guess with all the things that have happened, there's been quite a few unique challenges that come along with that. And I was going to say, what are some of the unique challenges you've faced in managing the sanctuary, and how have you overcame them? And I guess, like the first thing that comes to mind, I think everyone I think of is COVID, but how did you manage to get through everything?
Yeah, I think COVID was absolutely one of those challenges. It affected tourism and hospitality significantly. And for an organization like us, a zoological type facility, it's not that we can't just shut the doors and walk away from it for a period of time when we're in lockdowns and so forth. We still had 100 staff on site every day tending to our animals, our physical environment that we have here. Our hospital was still continuing to operate, and that was certainly challenging. And we were fortunate to have some support from the state government and federal government to really make sure that we continued to be able to do what we do, which was great. But I guess the other challenge that I think back to is when I first started with the sanctuary, because I started at a time when the sanctuary wasn't performing well. We had no cash in the bank. We were on the verge of closure almost. So it was a time for us to kind of take stock, look at how do we actually take the sanctuary to the next level and be able to protect this amazing facility that we have for the future, and be able to make sure that what we were doing for the right reasons as well. So it was a great opportunity to actually look at, from my role, look at it commercially and go, okay, well, how can we make sure that we are earning the right amount of revenue, that we're achieving the right level of profitability so that we can invest that profit back into both improving our facilities, but also furthering the work that we're doing within the hospital, within our conservation projects, within our sustainability projects.
And I was going to get to that because I went when I was a little girl, and I can remember all these lorikeets landing on my head and around me. And probably pretty well that was my memory of it. So and that was a long time ago, Michael. So in that time, since then, it's changed, hasn't it? It's morphed, it's grown. Has it changed direction? Like there's kangaroos out there now. There's there's so much more. Is that the conscious change that's been made?
I think the change is inevitable and change is good.
Yeah.
95, well, up until 1995, the sanctuary was known as the Currumbin Bird Sanctuary. It had a heavy focus on birds and so forth. But the Gold Coast needed to have a better focus on some of our native wildlife that we have here. So we continued to introduce more. So in 95, it was renamed Currumbin Wildlife Sanctuary. And then since then, we've continued to evolve our product based on consumer and our guest expectations. So we continue to improve the asset. We continue to add new attractions that are relevant to the time. We continue to retire certain things as our consumer sentiment changes a little bit as well. So it's one of those things that we continue to have an organic attraction here that just continues to change, so which is a really great thing, and that's exciting.
And I love that flexibility that Currumbin Wildlife Sanctuary has. You can change, you morph, you're flexible in what you're doing. I think but the other thing I was going to touch on too is that you're a large employer as well, and you've got a huge volunteer base, I think.
We do. Our total workforce is about 1,000 people. So we have a significant employment engagement here. We have about 370 team members. We have over 500 volunteers, and then we have about 200 people that are participating in training programs and furthering their studies and so forth on site here as well. So we play a lot in the training and the learning and development space, which is fantastic, because all these people are going out and there might be specialists in animal care or veterinary science and those type of things. They're going out with a greater understanding on how to deal with these native wildlife and helping to protect them out there in the future. But yeah, we are a large employer on the Southern Gold Coast, and we are grateful that we have some amazing staff that work for us as well.
And you lightly touched on the hospital, and I want to circle back to that. The hospital, why was that set up? And is that like for endangered, an accident, accidents happening to koalas and things like that? So
That's right.
What drove that?
Yeah, so in the 80s and even back in Dr. Alex Griffith's time, he would always take in injured and sick animals and basically get them better and release them into the wild. So in the 1980s, they established the Currumbin Wildlife Hospital, which was a free service to the community. And that was a very light touch at the time, but was still doing good things out there in the community. And about 15 years ago, we built a new facility, which was a state-of-the-art facility at the time. It was designed to cater for the increased demand. And then since then has gone on to really, really grow. So it's a fantastic facility. It's one of the largest native wildlife hospitals in the world.
Wow.
We see over 15,000 animals coming through the wildlife hospital on an annual basis. And basically our job is to treat them, to rehabilitate them, and to release them back into the wild. And so we do that as a free service to the community and to our wildlife. And it's an amazing asset.
So the sanctuary is involved in a number of other conservation properties and aspects. It's not just now about that Currumbin Wildlife Sanctuary, is it? You guys have just branched out into quite a number of other projects. Can you talk us through some of those?
Yeah, absolutely. So obviously we have a number of koala fodder plantations. We have 5 of them around the Gold Coast in northern New South Wales. We opened our latest in North Byron a couple of years ago, which is thriving, which is amazing. And obviously what we do with those plantations is we harvest gum on a daily basis to use for our koalas that come through the wildlife hospital. And then obviously the koalas that live on site as well. But what we also have is a number of other properties. So we have a koala rehabilitation facility in Pottsville. So those sick and injured koalas we treat down there and in this beautiful environment, and then they get released back into the wild. And we also have a Currumbin, up in the Currumbin Valley, we have a conservation property called Garama Conservation Reserve, which is a beautiful property. And Garama actually means in the Yugambeh language to take care of and respect. And what we have out there is we have a number of threatened species programs that we're doing some captive breeding on, and those animals that are being bred are getting released into the wild. And we're also doing a lot of bush regeneration and regeneration to the land out there as well, and just basically improving habitat for some of those species that are residing out there. And there's a number of threatened species in that area that we're doing work out for. So it's an amazing property. It's not open to the public.
I was going to ask that.
But we do tours and so forth out
Oh,
there,
do you?
and encourage anyone that wants to get involved with what we do to come and have a look. Obviously, all of this costs a lot of money, so we're always looking for sponsors and partners and so forth. And it's a great opportunity to get involved with some of these world leading programs, because without people like what we've got doing some of our threatened species programs, these particular species would become extinct. So it's quite critical that we continue to do the work that we do in that space.
That's remarkable. Gosh. And I guess that those tours, if someone was interested in it or interested in anything like, volunteering or sponsoring something, that they can just get through the Currumbin Wildlife Sanctuary, they would just contact them.
That's
Correct?
right.
You
Yeah,
know,
yeah, and we've got fundraising departments and so forth that can put you in the right
yeah.
the right space for what your particular business wants to help with.
I was we're going to get to it, but I was at the launch of the Homestead out there, and on the train ride to the Homestead, which was wonderful. I was speaking with some fellow business people, and one of them had told me that both his parents had worked for Currumbin Wildlife Sanctuary for 40 years.
Wow,
It's just remarkable the legacy that the Currumbin Wildlife Sanctuary has had. And I guess
absolutely.
that leads us straight into the homestead, which of course is the latest thing that you launched. And it's like this new it's like the Queenslander. It's just superb. It just sits there on that land. It belongs on that land. So what was the thought behind the homestead? Talk us through that, and you can explain what it is.
Yeah, for sure. So in 2019, our I went to our board and said, "It'd be really great to do a master plan for the sanctuary moving forward for the next 10 years." And so we kicked that off, and we used a local company, Pico Play, here on the Gold Coast to help us, really come up with what that master plan and that strategy was. We continued to do that through COVID. And it would have been easy for us to pause the project during COVID and say, "Oh, it's not
Mhm.
really a priority anymore." But no, we didn't. We kept moving forward with it, which was really great to see, and it was great for our board, to have that passion that we still wanted to continue forward with it. And out of that master planning, we developed a number of new precinct ideas and concepts and so forth based on our visitor feedback, our community feedback, based on some of our staff feedback as well, in terms of where we needed the sanctuary to really move to in the future. And one of those areas that came out of it was what we refer to internally as the Australiana precinct. So it was a new precinct, or an upgrade to an existing precinct as such, where we would look at our existing kangaroo experience and really elevate that. We wanted to work with our partners at Treetops Challenge to improve their experience as well. And they went and contributed some more money into that as well, which is amazing. And we now have a fantastic high ropes course experience. Um, but we also wanted to fix some of the problems that we had in those areas. So we had some low-lying flooding areas and so forth. And so it was a great opportunity to actually use some unused space within the sanctuary to develop new habitats for our rock wallabies. We improved our crocodile experience. We added a new aviary for our jabberoos and flying foxes and so forth. And then last year we launched Outback Springs, which is a new farm experience. So it was a great opportunity to bring the Queensland outback to the surf and sun of the Gold Coast. And that's been hugely successful, and guests have been raving about that, and that all came through guest feedback as well. That was one of the things that they wanted to see us do. And then to complement all of this, we obviously have to have a bit of a commercial element. And so that's where the Homestead came in, which is this modern take on a traditional Queenslander. And it's been designed in such a way that it's a very flexible multi-use facility. So by day, it becomes a new food and beverage outlet for us, which really does elevate the dining experience. And that was, one of our things that our guests told us, is they do want a better dining experience. It's not just about burgers and chips anymore when they come to an environment like us. It is about having really, really good paddock to plate dining experiences. And it also then by night becomes an event facility, so that we can host weddings, corporate events, conferences, and meetings and so forth. So very flexible space, designed beautifully to fit into the landscape that we have in that space. And obviously, the whole point of having these type of facilities is to raise funds, and all those funds then get injected back into some of our conservation projects as well.
Mm. Oh, it's absolutely beautiful, Michael. It's got great big open fireplace, like a great big fireplace in it. And yeah, and I love that it can be a multi-purpose, and it could be and I just sat there and thought, well, this has got to be the best wedding venue, down there on the south. And it was just fabulous. And the outlook and the lights. I loved the lights, the welcoming lights as you walk in. And you're surrounded by kangaroos just hopping past you as you're walking up to the venue.
Exactly. Such a unique environment. And that was one of the things that we noticed on the Southern Gold Coast, particularly. There was a shortage of event facilities here. So it was certainly is to fill a need and a gap in the market. But it is to provide a really unique experience for people because people come and love the sanctuary during the day. So why not come and have an event here at night as well?
No, totally agree. And is it open? Is it open 7 days a week for
Yes.
dining?
Yeah, open for lunch 7 days a week. And then obviously, at night for events. So
Yeah.
yeah, no, it's an amazing facility. Anyone that wants to come into the sanctuary, come in, become a member, and then you can just come and go to the homestead on a
Oh,
regular
that's so
basis
good.
as well. So no, it's a really great space. It's been a passion project of mine, and the team here. It's been a long time coming. We were fortunate to get some funding from the federal government from the Building Better Regions program, which RDA did
Yes.
certainly help us with, which we're very thankful for. And without that type of funding support, we just couldn't do these type of projects. So
Yeah.
we're really appreciative to particularly the federal government in this instance.
The increase in staff, the increase in the tourism that comes there, and also, the wedding venues, the evening, it just brings the southern area a lot more alive. It has a lot more to offer. I think it's, and plus it supports the conservation that you do as well. So it all goes hand in glove. So the other thing, I can remember when I first went down there and I was shown these incredible plans and the future plans, and I was actually really impressed that you've got these almost like a 10-year plan or 20-year plan for the venue, for the area, the sanctuary, I should say. So what are the future plans and developments that you have that are coming up? Let's look at some vision that you're doing.
Yeah, so I'm incredibly lucky to be in this role, to be able to drive the strategic vision of the sanctuary moving forward. And we have a lot going on. At the moment, I think my latest count, I've got about 33 projects on the go. Some are small, but some are big. And obviously our biggest next project that's coming up is our new night product, which launches in February next year. And that's where we will open the sanctuary on select nights of the week. And we're basically bringing in this new immersive product that allows guests to get in touch with nature at night, but using multimedia to do that. So we're partnering with Canadian-based multimedia company Moment Factory, who are amazing at what they do. And we're bringing a new concept down under, and this new concept will be the first time in the Southern Hemisphere. So we're really, really excited to be bringing a new night tourism product to the Gold Coast. It really helps the night economy piece that we have here. And it's more people staying overnight, so it's more bums on beds, it's more people dining in restaurants, it's more people coming and visiting. So we're really excited about it.
Well, that'll be fantastic because it would the sanctuary would take a whole different. And I noticed it the other night. It takes a whole different feel when it comes to night, doesn't it? The noises are
Absolutely.
different, the sounds are different, the animals behave differently. It's quite exciting. It's just lovely to see. So wow, well, that's February. We have to watch the
February.
space for February.
Watch this
Wow.
space. Yeah.
Mm. So about 2 years ago, you took on the role of General Manager of Strategic Projects for the National Trust of Australia, Queensland. Just to add to your many roles, can you tell us how many properties do they manage, and what does this role? And let's talk about it because a lot of us don't know what the National Trust actually does. So
Yeah. Absolutely. So the National Trust we're obviously a charity, not-for-profit business.
yeah,
So our head office is Currumbin Wildlife Sanctuary, and National Trust owns the sanctuary and has done since the 1970s. But we have 15 other properties around the state, and they're varying different types of properties, mainly in the heritage space. So we have properties all the way up in Cooktown. We have the Cooktown Museum up there. We have Atherton, Charters Towers. We have one in Maryborough. We have one in Wacol, out, west of Brisbane there. So they're heritage-based museums, and I guess the National Trust's whole premise is to conserve and protect these cultural and built assets for future generations. So that's definitely what we do, and certainly that's one of my roles now, is to conserve and protect these buildings. It's also to make sure that they're appropriate, their use is appropriate, and that it's meeting our guest expectations. And my other role is looking at the adaptive reuse of some of these buildings as well, and making sure that we preserve them, but we also interpret them in such a way that it's appropriate for the generation that's using them at the moment. So we're working through a number of projects at the moment within the National Trust space. We're working on some big projects up within the Cooktown Museum area at the moment. And at Woolston House, we're also looking at some work there. So there's so much going on in that space, as well as what's going on in the sanctuary. It's exciting times.
It is exciting times. So you're also, because you've got so much time on your hands, Michael, you're also the president of the Gold Coast Southern Chamber of Commerce. Okay. So what role do you see the chamber plays for the community in which you're representing?
Yeah, so I think, the roles of chambers have changed over the years. And I guess one of the things that particularly the Southern Gold Coast Chamber does is it's about connecting people together and connecting businesses together that are like-minded. And it's also becomes a really great way to network and get business from business to business. It's advocacy. It's promoting things that are happening out there, whether it's government policy changes that potentially needs to happen, or it's driving, we've got ER changes at the moment, IR changes that are happening at the moment. So we need to be having a seat at the table and really speaking up for small businesses, particularly on the southern end here. And the other thing is communications, making sure that all of our members are getting the appropriate level of communication so that they know what government grant programs are out there, or changes that are happening to IR, or just letting them know what other businesses are up to. So, it's kind of evolved in that, but certainly there's a big focus for us on events and getting people out of their businesses and coming to events and getting to mingle with each other. It's, I know myself, I've been a member of the chamber for 8 odd years, and certainly I have connected different businesses through that. You're at the Homestead launch. I can tell you that the artwork that's on those walls, I met an artist at a chamber event who is a local base there that we're now using in the Homestead. So we it's a great tool for networking and so forth. So privileged to lead such a vibrant board down here that are doing some amazing work, and it's all volunteer led as well, which is amazing.
And I think also, Michael, being in business can be very isolating, because everyone's working, seriously working hard on their businesses and in their businesses, and you can actually get quite isolated. So to have a chamber that you can go to for advice and to network and to discuss, what's going on and what's happening and supporting each other, I think is really vital nowadays.
Absolutely. And you do feel quite isolated in certain business sector, and particularly those new businesses that don't know anyone. Being able to come along to an event and get to know, I guess the who's who of business on the Southern Gold Coast, So I definitely encourage those businesses that aren't members to become a member of your local chamber, because it certainly is a great way to connect with people.
Yeah, absolutely. So, with your extensive experience in leadership and management, what advice would you give to aspiring leaders in tourism and conservation sectors, and particularly that conservation has become the really big thing, hasn't it? It's a very important role now.
Yeah, and I guess my advice would be just to get involved. If you look at 25% of our workforce, our paid workforce here, are here because they were volunteers here. So it's a great way to get a pathway. So volunteer in a space, get to know it, make sure you want to do it. And then there's an opportunity that then opens up from that as well. So get involved in it, but I think also advocate for, the work that we do in, some of these these spaces, because we always need people out there spruiking the work that we do. And even if it's not something that you can, devote a huge amount of time to, coming along to any of our events, or pushing it, or talking to your friends and family about some of the work we do, particularly in that threatened species space, or what the work that the hospital does. We're getting involved in research a lot more now. We're looking to build a state-of-the-art research and training facility in the next couple of years that will support our wildlife hospital, because ultimately it's about not actually admitting more and more animals. It's about stopping these animals being admitted because of disease and some of the other threats that are out there as well.
So, Michael, what's the major I'm going back there. What's one of the major problems with the animals? Like, is it mainly disease?
I think it depends on the species. If you look at, say,
Okay.
koalas, for instance, koalas, endangered out there in the wild. One of the main reasons that we're seeing koalas admitted through our wildlife hospital is for chlamydia. So it's a disease, and obviously that is, contributing to those animals being admitted. So it's not necessarily the disease is sometimes the reason they're admitted, is because the disease has forced them onto the ground into an area where they shouldn't be, or they get hit by a car or something like that. So disease is the underlying problem in a lot of these cases. So we need to solve these disease problems, and then that would solve a lot of the other flow-on problems that we have. Yeah.
Yeah. So you've lived on the Gold Coast now for a long time. You're a Brisbane boy, so you're only an hour up anyway, so we'll call you a local. What is it personally about the Gold Coast that you think makes it so special and just keeps you here?
I think, how could you not love living on the Gold Coast? It's the lifestyle. I get to work in one of the best environments on the Gold Coast, so that makes it even super special. We have subtropical rainforest, and then I'm 100 meters from one of the best beaches. It's pretty special place to live, and I also think that the people that are here are incredibly passionate about what they do, and it's like-minded. We've gone from being a tourism city to being biomedical, to construction, to movies, and the like. So we're such a diverse industries now, which is wonderful to see.
Look, it's been a pleasure speaking with you, Michael. I feel that there's a lot more conversation around the wildlife hospital and your sustainable properties that we could have, and we'll probably zero in on them on our next chat. But thank you so much for your time today, Michael. It's been a pleasure to get to know you and to hear what's happening at the Currumbin Wildlife Sanctuary.
Thanks, Estella, and thank you for the support of RDA and all your support over the years as well. Really appreciated it.
You're most welcome. Thank you. Thanks for listening today. For a complete list of podcast episodes and transcripts, go to rdagoldcoast.org.au/podcasts. And don't forget to follow us on Facebook, LinkedIn, or Twitter.